Ayo, what's outside is within. The mind regulates the hand that masters the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is mightier still. The stargate to the mind's revealed. The Vortex.
Yo, peace everybody. Want to welcome you to Real Talk with Kevin, presented by the Verbal Vortex Show. Today we are diving deep into a topic that connects every human being on this planet: the evolution of humankind and ancient civilizations. Too often, Africa's true place in the human story is overlooked, hidden, or rewritten. But science and history both tells us something undeniable. The first humans walked the soil of Africa. From the kingdoms of Kush and Kemet to the rise of Great Zimbabwe and Timbuktu, Africa wasn't just the birthplace of humanity, it was the cradle of knowledge, spirituality, and civilization itself. Today we're gonna unpack that truth, challenge myths, and explore how this knowledge can restore pride, power, preserve within us and our communities. Let's have a real talk, not just about history, but about our story. Yeah. Let me see what that thing is, what I was told about. I swear in the bottom corners of the notifications business there, before we get into anything. Anyway, ciao. I don't know how to work all of that business there. So, my first question, Kev, yeah, is when we think of ancient civilizations, like why are Egypt, Greece, and Rome discussed more than Nubia, Kush, or Great Zimbabwe?
Well, I think over time, if you've been reading, there's been a whitewashing of history. That's the sort of terminology.
Yeah.
The Arab invasion of Egypt sort of contributed to that. And then people saw or recognized Egyptians as looking more sort of Arab than black.
Right.
The very powerful empires, the Greeks and the Romans, and quite influential in the way people thought about history, especially with the Greeks and their knowledge.
Yeah.
So that as well was pushed to the forefront of the foundation of philosophy and mathematics, etc. So these nations that were powerful at one point in time, and people need to look into Hegel and his writings about civilizations, etc. And he had ideas that promoted this sort of idea that Africa didn't play a role in anything.
Yeah. So, you know, while I'm asking you these questions, because I want to see if I can try and notify some of these goons into getting involved in this good talk here. So, what are some of the oldest known African civilizations that deserve more recognition?
Definitely Nubia. Like, Nubia's underrated, and it's funny, like, let me say something first. I have to shout out to a few writers.
Yeah.
I can't talk about all of them because I can't remember all their names, especially the ones on my bookshelf. And sorry, Akala, you're such a great socio-political, historical commentator. When I'm doing talks sometimes I forget your name. So Akala, Robin Walker, David Olusoga, Zainab Badawi, Afua Hirsch, Peter Fryer, who's passed away. And then you've got a lot of white authors and social commentators like Jane Elliott, Dr. Robin DiAngelo, Dr. Jacqueline Batalora, these people that stand up and talk in defense of black people, their history, and also talk about white privilege. So I like to shout them out in regards to just being part of this sort of ongoing movement, this progressive movement of humility and equality and equity, really more than anything else. But Nubia, I mean, Zainab Badawi says in her book that they don't really call Nubia in Africa. They just use the word Kush. So I'll talk about the Kushites. Robin Walker writes extensively about the Kushites. But apparently there was a incense burner found in the ancient city of Costal. They dated that back to 5,900 BC. And originally there was a lot of talk about Mesopotamia all the time, you know, and I think that's immersed in the good book and religious belief that the starting place for humanity was the Garden of Eden, located in Mesopotamia, Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. That location there. But the oldest bones for humankind haven't been found in Mesopotamia. You know, they've been found in Africa. So that's one thing that's sort of been debunked to a certain extent, because there's still a belief or disbelief that Africa was the birthplace of humankind. So people are still juggling it. They're still juggling with the notion that Nubia came first against Egypt. Again, because of the whitewashing of history, people are in that camp, thinking that Egypt came first, but a lot of people suggest that the Kushite Empire came first.
I've got questions here, but I like to just flow. Well, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's right.
So now, because I'm glad you've highlighted that, because I like to deal with just what I just call as common sense. Because when you look into Nubia, you find that you've got thousands or hundreds of thousands of smaller pyramids. And obviously you've got the Nile that stretches from Egypt through to Nubia. So in my mind, I'm thinking, obviously, something has to start off something. There has to be a chain reaction. And they say that the pyramids in Nubia predate the Egyptian ones. So wouldn't the knowledge come from down the Nile upwards until the peak of Kemet?
Yeah.
That makes more sense to me, you know what I mean? And from what I've studied and what I know, like when we're dealing with King Nama supposedly came from Nubia.
Yeah.
So.
But there's still ongoing debates. But you know, I think the Kushite Empire and how it just developed. So they historians say that it was sort of developed. They categorized them: Group A, Group C, and Kerma culture, where Group A, you know, started some pharaonic development. Then Group C, they started interacting with Egypt a lot more, and then Kerma culture, they became more politically complex.
Yeah.
You know, in regards to their kingdom.
So you're alright with this?
Yeah, I'm alright. I'm not usually a cat person, but I'm good because my missus got a cat.
Oh, pet. Respect.
So, yeah, you can see about the early development. It's interesting that you said about the architecture, because as well, that sort of idea that ancient African civilizations had the ability to build on such a grand scale, sort of didn't sit right in people's heads. You know, how could we talk about inferiority later on down the line, and then assign the idea that these inferior Africans built these, you know what I mean? So it's quite deep. There's over 1,000 pyramids. I mean, there's about 200 left now. But even to develop 1,000
When you say there's 200, sorry to cut you. So when you say there's 200 left now, is that due to people demolishing them?
Yeah, I mean, there might be, that's more than likely. I could say, oh, there was weather and other factors that contributed to that, but you know, that would be more of a half politically correct answer more than anything else, because we know about the Sphinx's nose. When I went to Egypt, I saw a lot of defacing of the hieroglyphics that had images with people with black noses, etc. They were restoring that when I was in Egypt. So, you know, there was a real disdain for the image of blackness in Egypt. So Nubia itself, what a great civilization. I mean, they dealt with a lot of barter and a lot of trade. They had a great army, everyone knows about. They had great kings. One of the things that always amazed me, and I didn't know until I started reading, that I was sort of in what was induced in my head, that Africans didn't write really, and they passed down their history through oral tradition. What a lie that was, you know. they had extensive writing. I mean, in Nubia they had the Victory Stela, they had the Memphite theology, they had the Shabaka text, they had all these texts that really, to a certain extent, couldn't be fully translated. So there was knowledge being passed down, and knowledge being historic knowledge given to their people about certain events through these writings.
Yeah.
So the ancient Africans did have writings. The Kushites, they had technological and architectural ability. Yeah, if you can build those pyramids, that means you've got great science and mathematics underpinning your work. Like I said, the army was great, the kings were great. Pi, Shabaka, and Kashta. Kashta's son Pi evidently conquered Egypt, and the Kushites ruled Egypt for 100 years in the 25th dynasty. Also, according to Ivan van Sertima, and this has been debated, that it was the Nubians of the 25th dynasty that travelled down to Mesoamerica, and may have influenced the Olmec civilization down there. There's Ameneres, the warrior queen, the one-eyed warrior queen that backed up the Romans. So, you know, over time, and they had a lot of influence. They interacted really well with the Greeks, and had a lot of back and forth with the Egyptians. Sometimes they were friends, sometimes they weren't friends. But as the first kingdom, considered the first kingdom on this planet, they were magnificent, you know, but evidently a lot of people wouldn't know that unless you're picking up a particular type of book.
Yeah. Do you know what's very interesting? Yeah, I don't normally send like comment on people's stuff on TikTok and stuff like that, but one guy did a post, and his post was saying that Napoleon was black, and I think he went to a certain website and he typed in a website of a gallery. So when he typed in a certain number for one of the portraits, you see Napoleon with dark skin. Now, from what I've studied, and I left a comment saying, I left it respectably, and I said, like, you know what, from what I've studied, Napoleon was white, and he shot off the Sphinx's nose due to the strong African features. And the amount of backlash and thing from some of the people to say, no, it's not true, he was black. What's your mindset on that?
I was thinking about that the other day. I try not, Septimus Severus, the same thing, the Libyan, Roman, king, conqueror, emperor that was here 193, doing this stuff in York, controlling Londinium, and around Hadrian's Wall and doing his thing. Now, there's debate about him. People will say that he was black. People will say, no, he wasn't black. All right. We can dispute that. If he's not black, he's African, because he's from Libya.
Right.
So that's one thing. But if he isn't, because it's great that you said that, because I was thinking very deeply about imagery and identity in regards to ancient people or people from antiquity. And I can't involve myself in that. Historically, there's always confusion going on with imagery. Unless I have something that's definite. I've heard that Shakespeare was black, Mozart, or Beethoven, or whatever. Yeah. Then you see different images, you're confused.
Yeah.
I just stay with what is sort of correct, not these other bits that when you know, Martin Luther King's black, you know Malcolm X is black, you know Harriet Tubman's black, you know Nat Turner's black. When you start going backwards, you start knowing. When you go into the ancients and around that realm, it becomes a bit cloudy. And then it's like you're dealing with bias now. Your bias is dictating how you're feeling about the imagery. Yeah, there must have been black, and someone puts out something like. So I've forgotten about that. I try not to play too much into that, because I know my own biases. If someone puts out a picture of Napoleon says he's black, I might jump on board and say, right, I didn't know he was black. And social media can create that confusion as well.
What I was going to say to you is, do you think that's done on purpose? Because, for instance, when you go to a place like the British History Museum, you're actually dealing with artifacts that come from Kemet and certain places, and you can see the black features and all that. But what you don't realise is underneath the museum, they've got catacombs, or they've got places where they store all of this other artifacts what you don't really get to see. Maybe on special occasions they'll bring them out for a week or two and then put them back down.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is the same way they can get physical information and keep it from you. Do you think they do that in the literature sense, and they give us this hazy sort of information?
It's distorted. It's distorted. The views are still distorted and still lead to confusion. That's why I still read books. You know, because there's not much confusion in the books. People can create confusion out of the books, like Septimus Severus. I've seen people criticise Peter Fryer for his talk about there being a black Roman running London, you know, and on podcasts, years and years later. I mean, I read his book late in the 90s, and in 2023 or 22, whenever I was looking at these podcasts on YouTube, there's two guys, Caucasian guys, talking about how, you know, even Peter Fryer was wrong. So, you know, there is a lot of distortion, but if you keep to a lot of the factual elements with people that are known, you know, and let's go back in time. Let's think about the development of humankind. So the debate is over now. Yeah, they debated about from when they found the bones in Peking in 1927 and said Peking man and Japan was the birthplace of humankind, or Mesopotamia or whatever. That debate is done. They know. Everyone knows. And if you don't know, now you know that, isn't that Biggie?
Yeah, that's right. Get me. Baby.
The birthplace of humankind was Africa. So, and this is based on paleoanthropological historians and archaeologists, evidence and research.
Yeah.
14 million years ago, Kenopithecus emerged as a hominid. There are these entities rolling around before Homo sapiens sapien. And then there's, I can't name them all out because there's over 20 of them. Yeah, with some complex names that are tongue twister. So I'll give you a basic timeline. So 40 million years ago, and remember they died out after each other. So Kenopithecus, then Australopithecus ramadas, then Australopithecus afrensis, then Australopithecus africanus, then Australopithecus robustus, then Australopithecus bosi. Bam! Died out. That's a few of them outside of the 20, you know what I mean? And then afterwards came Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and then Homo sapiens sapien, 250 to 300,000 years ago. Africa, right? Heat, yeah? Vegetation, whatever, but there was heat. Melanated skin, black people emerged. So what happened next? All right, people existing, So 90 to 60,000 years ago, migration, not all at once, because even in my readings over time I thought, damn, like, and it's quite narrow thinking. They just all decided to leave Africa at once. There was back and forth, yeah, but people left out, and there was interactions with different people, and you know, the skin colour of Africans started changing a little bit. The dominant colour was still black, but there was people interacting, Greeks and whoever, yeah. So they, 90 to 60,000 years ago, they spread out across the globe. But what happened? Adaptation through natural selection. You had to adapt to your environment, yeah, and that happened naturally. It's not like you just thought, oh damn, I need some vitamin D, let me start scrubbing my skin to get lighter. Yeah, that wasn't happening. You were there, and over thousands of years, depigmentation took place. And it's funny that depigmentation took place like 12,000 to 8,000 years ago. So it's a relatively new thing, you know. So to absorb vitamin D, your melanin was going, maybe harsh, cold environments, larger nostrils go to thinner ones, can't take that. Eye shape change, let's say about sun reflecting off the snow, so you needed protection for your eyes. Hair colour change, eye colour change. And that created more diversity. So those black original entities moved outwards, and then through that adaptation less melanated people came. So really those are that's the earliest sort of point that you could sort of, people could go back further than that, yeah, those real deep historians and anthropologists. But that, if you look at that timeline, you see that Africa's a home and that everyone came out of Africa.
So, you know, piggybacking off that,
Yeah.
you know, how did African civilizations contribute to science, mathematics and architecture long before European contact?
Well, I know about that. We've had some talks about that. You've talked about some stuff. I know about the Nubians and their stuff, but the Egyptians were at the forefront of that. Yeah, everyone knows they were probably one of the most illustrious. All right, the Mali Empire as well. Yeah, but in regards to mathematics, science, geometry, the solar calendar, agriculture, everything that's created the foundation, that laid the foundation for human development and moving forward technologically. You know, the Edwin Smith Papyrus is about medicine. They got that in some museum in New York, like, and cataracts operations, neck operations. They got some stuff going on there. Whether it was astronomy and whether it was about the pyramids at Giza, Khufu, Menkaure and Khafre, those, the one in the middle, all of them are sort of aligned. There's movement going on, but aligned with Orion's belt. Pythagoras, lots of scholars came to Egypt to learn their craft. Pythagoras spent 22 years in Egypt learning his mathematics. Historians like Diodorus Siculus and Herodotus talked about how all the Greek gods are named from the Egyptians, and how geometry and mathematics come from the Egyptians. So you know, if you're doing your reading and research, that a predominant amount of technological, mathematical and scientific thought and intellectualism came out of Egypt.
Why do you think Egypt's African identity is often downplayed or erased in history books?
Because its greatness, you know, people got to understand a lot of the thinking for the whitewashing of history wasn't about now. Those that reside at the upper echelons of society that dictate what the world thinks, they're just on the back end of it. They've got the residue of it. So it's sort of carrying on but fading out. If the new generation get on board, they can fade that racist thinking out and change society. But the old intellectual, or pseudo-intellectual minds of antiquity created an idea. All right, we've already promoted this idea that Africans are inferior. We go to Africa now and see that they're not. What do we have to do? We have to throw that under the rug. We can't have people think that these people are technologically advanced and more advanced than us.
Yeah.
You know, when Africa were doing their thing in regards to advancement and their contributions to human civilization, places, Europe was in the dark ages. They hadn't even thought about, they hadn't even dreamt about doing the things that people in Africa were doing already.
So, you know, things like spirituality and cosmology, you know, like, how did it shape ancient African civilizations compared to others around the world?
I think that because of the development of religion, it's funny that polytheism and this having lots of different gods has been ostracized by modern day religions. So we know that Christianity emerged in the 1st century, and we know Islam emerged in about the 7th century. And the oldest religious text is not, from what I know, because you Google it, it's not the emerald tablets from Mesopotamia, but the pyramid text from Egypt. So the pyramid text as being the first sort of religious text, that it was influential in the development of later writing. Sorry, what was the question again, Nev?
Basically, the question is just, how did spirituality and cosmology shape ancient African civilizations compared to others around the world?
So they were the template for religions. I mean, if you look at, well, there's a book, John G. Jackson, Christianity Before Christ. Now, whether it's Horus from Egypt, whether it's Krishna from India, Krishna and Buddha, whether it's Bacchus from Greece, whether it's Mithra from Persia, whoever it was, if you look at their stories, they all have this common theme. Resurrection, born in a cave or a manger, wise men, some star and light, a stepfather that has to go and pay some taxes somewhere, like Joseph, and like if you look at the timeline throughout history, you can see it's replicated in Christianity.
Right.
So that ancient civilizations promoted and created and laid the foundation to the religious doctrines that are still followed now.
I was going to say to you, well, how did African civilizations, it kind of ties in what we were just saying there, but different, going off a bit, influence other parts of the world through migration and trade?
I mean, these cataracts around Africa were they were protective factors for Africa. So in regards to seafaring, but people wanted, we got Columbus, we got John Hawkins, we got a lot of different people travelling out and then starting to pirateer on the seas. But at the forefront of trade were Africans. They can control trade. It's like Axiomites, Eritrea and Ethiopia, they were ancient Axiom. So Zoskel's, the first king of Axiom, he controlled trade on the Red Sea, the port of Adul. So if that was a hub, the same thing happened in Mali. Around Timbuktu, there was great trade going on. So people were fighting at those times. Ancient Mali, it controlled the gold and salt industry. Everyone knows, and most people know about the wealth of Mansa Musa. So how trade was in Africa then. Trading before that with the Kushites was like that, and trade generally with most of the wealthy African kingdoms was going on, and it influenced the Europeans to come down and say, oh, we want a bit of that, especially when you had poverty going on in England. England had nothing. What did England have?
Nothing.
They had silver. Silver was silver. They had a money-making commodity. They had the Wat Tyler uprising here. People were disgruntled. Those times of the feudal system and serfs and the lord and the manor and whatever. People were broke. Wat Tyler rose up with people. It was like, well, we're broke over here. So there was a time and place where Britain wasn't really that advanced, especially when you make the comparison. You can tell, it's like in education. In Britain, there's a real push, and across the world, there's this ideology that Britain's got one of the best educations. Like you think about Britain, Oxford, Cambridge, America, you think about Yale and Harvard and whatever. Like they were the principal founders of any educational teachings. The first university came out of Morocco, Fez, 857 AD. Oxford didn't come about until 1096. Yeah, and even then it didn't sound like it was really operating, even though the university at Fez originally started off as a mosque.
Yeah.
But then it developed into that. I think about 2 years later, it was university status. So, you know, even when it came to intellectual thinking, that began in Africa.
See, and you're answering questions before I've even got to answer them, because I was going to say to you next, how did African civilizations influence other part of the world through? Oh, well, not that one was. Sorry, I was going to say, what can modern societies learn from the governance, trade, and education systems out of Africa? So that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's here. Whatever we've got was created by Africans. You know, and continue and rolled onto a continuum, because then you've got great inventors that came about and invented stuff that we exist with now that weren't recognised. And I take my hat off to the Americans out there, because the amount of American inventors that were putting in work under a lot of duress. I don't know how they done it, because they existed in a time when you know, it was crazy for black people. Let me go off the subject, because I'm quite emotional with it, when it comes to black history. Obviously, because we live black history every day.
Yeah.
But I watch Godfrey quite a lot. If any of you watch Godfrey the comedian, I went out on my missus' birthday and we went to see Godfrey live in Leicester Square. And that was a great show. But I watch him because he's also a comedian but a social commentator. He's sort of quite irate about things, but I think my perspective would be sort of similar if I lived in America, because there's a lot more tension, and they lived with slavery in America. But his I'll say side man, his co-presenter Dante, they're both readers, big readers, and he brought up the name of a book the other day that I've got to buy, you know, and I've got no qualms in spending money on books, because go on Amazon, it's £56, Delectable Negro.
Ah, yes, I know of that book. I've been waiting to get that book as well. Yeah. Carry on. Talk to them about that.
You know, we know that if you're reading and if you're aware that you know, the Europeans used to eat mummies for whatever reason back in the day, but they also like to invest in eating black people and cooking them up. And even in the book, the Delectable Negro, it talks about, because it's a very homoerotic.
Sorry, just so I can spring on that, they used to make shoes out of black people's skin. They used to make chairs and stuff like that, lampshades and all this stuff out of their skin. They used to take the hair of black people and when they're making the chairs, and they'll stuff that in the chairs to use as like cushions and stuff. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, so that practice there, their genitals they used to eat. So there's a lot of information generally in black history. I mean, because no nation wants their nation to be, they want their nation to be seen with pride. Bottom line.
And I was just about to ask you, you see, obviously we're talking about how they downplay, how they rewrite and how they cover. What does that do if black people start to get this information about what we're talking about, the Delectable Negro, and, you know, topics and informations within that book, you know, because there's two sides to history. Obviously there's the kings, there's the greatness, there's the illustriousness, but when you go into the dark side about what happened to us, what does that do when we start to gather both sides of that information?
You know, it's processing it is hard work, especially for those who are just finding out this information. They haven't been reading it, and you can have a really reactionary emotional response, and it can spark a lot of anger and hate, which really people have to put things into context when they're reading. We're not reading about so-called white people. I hate using that term white, I hate using the term black. Less melanated or less brown would be better, whatever, you know. But hearing certain information will make you start hating people if you can't understand that this was the work of people from back in the day. This isn't the work. All right, there's inequalities still, and we can talk about that because there's serious inequalities. But they didn't create and promote racial inferiority. They didn't use the word white as a way to divide black and white people, like Dr. Jacqueline Battalora talks about what happened in 1681. You know, so put things into context. There are a lot of white people out there flying the flag for black people. I mean, when I'm on social media now, even in D'Angelo's passing, rest in peace, D'Angelo, we miss you. Even in D'Angelo's passing, there's a lot of white people out there that love D'Angelo and loved his music and talking about the conspiracy that's seemingly underpinning his death. So there's a lot of people out there, people like to put people in one bracket. You're white, so you're a racist. That doesn't make you a racist. You're black, so you're a robber. You're Turkish, so you own a kebab shop. Like, people are so narrow-minded in their thinking, it's unreal. And like I said before, we live in a technologically advanced society that are socially backward when it comes to thinking. So stop putting people in brackets and understand that there's people out there that have similar feelings to you in regards to what they feel is right. You know, so I've forgotten the question because I'll get emotional.
I can't remember where we as well because I've mothered.
But you know, but yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, but I was gonna say, like, just to you know, move on with it. How can, when we're dealing with ancient civilizations, how can young people reconnect with Africa's ancient wisdoms and knowledge systems in modern context?
I mean, it's so easy for them now because they can go on YouTube. Yeah, you know, it was the other day. I've got the Papyrus Anai, the Book of the Dead. I've got a book on the Book of the Dead, and I've read a little bit about that. The Teachings of Mott, I haven't read a lot about it. I know about it. It's about justice, order, balance, and truth. I know it was cosmic. How can you have ancient people that have a practice that governs society that goes beyond the planet Earth in ancient times? Yeah, it was about cosmic balance as well. Like, the depth of their teachings. I think as well, at a certain point in time, they saw that African people were so advanced, they couldn't let people know they were that advanced. And also, they couldn't understand it.
Of course. That as soon as you said that, you know who I just thought of straight away? The Dogons. You remember when I was watching one documentary where this group of Europeans went out there and they was talking to them, studying them, and the Dogons would say, yeah, but it's pointing to them. This time they're pointing, you know, and when they're looking up, they're just seeing maybe faint stars or space in the skies. Yeah, we come from over there. And these guys, what they're talking about? I think they said the Dog Star or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
because it's invisible or something.
Right, they couldn't see it.
Yeah.
So they're like, what are they talking about? And as, you know, I'm talking about hundreds of years or, how a long period of time has gone past where they've made a telescope which is so powerful that they can see into the cosmos. They finally saw it. And I was thinking, how can these uncivilized, barbaric individuals be giving us this information? Surely they must have got it from another European.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So, anyway.
Because I think it weren't till the 1970s they discovered it.
Exactly, that's my point. But when they first came across, this was like hundreds of years before. So they for that big time, they was thinking, oh, these guys are chatting shit.
Yeah, a man's drawing it.
Yeah.
In the ground.
In the dirt.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And saying, boom. And exactly where they keep pointing to, that's where it was.
Yeah.
And you know what's so beautiful, as I'm saying, because when you're dealing with Asian Africans, you're dealing with the Aboriginals, they like a lot of, don't get me wrong, when you're dealing with Kemet, we wrote a lot of stuff down, you know, we wrote it on the walls and we had libraries. But with the Aboriginals, that they used to recite and tell everything through story and song.
Yeah.
And maybe even still to this day, they still do that.
They do. I mean, when I was in uni, man, and I've forgotten it now, there's this dreamscape thing that the Aboriginals do. I can't remember it in its entirety. It's part of their tradition. Yeah. But even in learning about that in uni, I was like, these Aboriginal people are on a different level. But I think whether it was the the decimation of the Polynesians, the Africans, the Indians, like a lot of it was based on, all right, they talked about inferiority, but you went to people's homes and there was a greatness in these people. There was a connection to nature that these other people that come didn't have. You know, it's strange when you envy something and you're jealous of something where that leads to.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the indigenous people from around the globe that were wiped out, I feel they were seen as more than the other. You know, so what can we do? And then, you know, with industrialization and the need for economic wealth, we'll exploit them, kill them, and take their stuff.
That's right.
You know, much hasn't changed now. I mean, it's quite weird, and I don't know the numbers. But Africa are in debt.
Yeah.
People are lending them money. But they're still rinsing out, they're still taking out of Africa lots of resources. Congo's worth in resources how many trillion? Yeah. So how is Africa in debt and still owing money? You know, it's a strange game that's played when you're taking money, but giving money because we're supporting you, but you've got enough resources to generate wealth to support you for how many years?
My add-on to that is just money's just a piece of paper. Resources is the actual wealth. So the people around the world have been mind fucked. You know, this is all put in place to hold up certain societies. Because, you know, if Africa was to say, right, no more, closing the borders, then everybody's fucked.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Excuse my language, but over here we talk how we want to talk. But anyway, look, we just dealt with ancient civilizations there in a way. I wanted to move it over to evolution of mankind, if that's cool. But before we do that, let's have a scroll through. I see that, you know, people are sending 1 or 2 messages, so let's have a look. And guys, anything that you hear and you want to respond to, you know, just type it in, because at the end of each part, I'll go over them and we'll read them out and we'll deal with whatever you say. Let's go. Let's have a look. Big up. I see some certain heads joining, like the actual podcast. Big up Intuitively Blessed, putting me on to click the the notification arrow at the bottom to get people involved in the thing. Big up Jedi. I see he just said big up to the man them there. Yeah, big up Black Cinderella saying Grand Rising Kings. I love your lives. Respect. Anna as well saying I always like these conversations you have. We love to have these conversations to get you guys involved in talking and thinking. That's the whole point, you know. We do this stuff to create dialogue, innit? Yeah, it's kind of like just a tap and a jog to make people interact and talk. Because a lot of the time people have thoughts and feelings, but they're not talking, they're not saying nothing. And you know, they say still sharpens still. We're supposed to be able to say, oh no, that's wrong, that's right. And regardless of who's right or wrong, we're still creating a nice journey for us to travel down. So
and talk on a normal level where it's understandable, you know?
Yeah.
People like to talk in a particular manner to prove who they are. We're just normal people at the end of the day.
Much love, yeah,
Talking
man.
a language that everyone can understand.
Yeah, man. Again, big up Intuitively Blessed. Much love. She also states that Black history is not spoken and taught about enough. My son was saying this to me this week. What do you think about that? About the about it being spoken?
You know, I went to. Oh, sorry.
That's right.
I went to school the other day and done a couple of talks on Black history. Let me go back. There was a young guy that found his identity through Black history a long time ago, and it was a real big contributing factor in the development of his self-esteem, his self-identity, and his self-confidence. I won't name that person, but I know him pretty well. So
Yeah.
I've seen the journey. So with young people nowadays, I mean, even in the talk I said that I was a bit upset going to the school to talk. Even though you get paid for going to talk. But in an utopia, and I say utopia because for it to happen now, it would be sort of like utopia. It should have just been in the annals of human history. You know, like I said before, people like to show their nations with pride. You know, depict them with, you know, this pride for we're the best. So they had to sweep the dirty parts or the other parts that didn't make them look like the forefathers of everything under the rug. You know, so when your starting point for black history is slavery, and it's quite strange that white slavery is not talked about. And I'm wondering if the intellectual minds of yesteryear understood the impact talking about white slavery consistently would have on white people if they knew their starting point. You know, because white slavery was earlier than the transatlantic slave trade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the Arab slavery and the Berber pirates, that started about 650 AD. And, you know, some people argue that it's still going on now.
Yeah.
You know, so... But people don't know when they were ripping people from England and taking them to North Africa, no one ain't talking about that. So white people, in essence, have had it easy emotionally in regards to not even hearing about that history properly to the full extent. You know, some people know about Ireland being colonised, etc. in the 1100s, but they don't know the extent of white slavery. But for black children, that's been talked about a lot. That's been passed down generation to generation without any education about their history. So unconsciously, how do you see yourself? If black history starts at slavery, if things are divided into this dichotomy of white and black, colonizer, colonized, master, slave master, good and evil. If that's promoted historically, socially and politically, and it's seemingly evident in the interactions in society where you're not getting equality, and yet so all these things are going on, you're experiencing it. Unconsciously it's having an impact. When you come into a job, and this is as an adult as well, and for some black people, they won't recognise it. As a therapist, I can recognise it, and I can see it sometimes when it's happening. Some of I'm not saying I'm the only one. There's people without therapeutic knowledge or practice that are in tune with things. Yeah. But in the case of a job interview or etc., there'll be some black people that'll feel on their back foot. They already know they've got to dress differently. Yeah, to the next person, they'll come in a bit. Yeah, you know what I mean?
They'll snazz it up a bit more. Yeah.
But why, when they might know there's a black person there, they're a bit more relaxed with their talk. Yeah, they interact differently. They feel a certain way. But with the white person, it's like the slave master mentality. I've got to be good for my master. There's situations where black people operate with that slave mentality within workplaces, and they bow down to the white leader in the workplace. But the black leader, they'll treat them like they're on the same level. You know, so there is this thing that goes on unconsciously with people, and with young people especially, it creates if they don't know about the greatness of ancient black people, where's the greatness in them? Especially when they're failing. Yeah. You know, so...
Do you know what it reminds me of something I watched where they had this, they made like a test or something, or a way to just test people, where they had this doctor's office, and then they had this, everybody else was actors except for this girl, so after every 30 seconds this alarm will go off and everybody will stand up and they'll sit down. So she's looking at them like they're mad. Like she's like, what? But by the 5th time, she started to stand up as well. And then one by one, all of these characters went to left her, and then they brought this other guy and maybe a few others. She kept on still standing up. So the guy was like, what? One of the people was saying, what are you doing? And she's saying, oh, like she's explaining, oh, this was going on before, you know, and I'm just continuing it. Next thing you know, after about 3 or 4 times, they started to do the same thing too. So the point of what I'm trying to get at is like, because I know a lot of people are listening to you and maybe people saying, oh, why is he always talking about slavery? Why are they always talking about slavery and how it affects us now? The things what has been implanted and given to us, maybe as traditions, they might not be traditionally ours, but things that was put in place and set by colonialism, by slavery and all of these things, still play out today without us even knowing it.
Yeah, I think what it is as well that people don't understand. Educators know a lot. Educators will always talk about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and what those adverse childhood experiences do to the child in regards to playing out in their behaviour on the long term. So if you're an educator and you understand about slavery and you understand in the Caribbean and America especially, all right, here as well, but not like in the same way. Like America and the Caribbean, they're sort of run on the same parallel.
Yeah.
But if from generation your children have witnessed the raping of their mother, the burning of their mother, the drawing and quartering of their mother, the raping of their father. They've been raped themselves. Their family's been sold. The eating of their family members, like horrendous dehumanizing practices. And you've had to adapt to that and bring up your own family, then die up, and and everyone has lived in that. Epigenetic studies show that trauma's passed down. So what are you saying? That black people have to get over it and be okay when internally in our genes we carry our ancestors from how long?
Haven't had no healing, bro.
And then you start finding out information you didn't know in the event of George Floyd's death. So you may have been like this, just sort of coasting. But then you hear about the human zoos that people didn't know about. You hear about the paying back to the slave masters of the how much millions over 182
and that was just the other day they did that.
182 families over how many years? When you start hearing other bits, it compounds your trauma. So I can sit quite all right as a person reading about history, existing in inequality and knowing about inequality. If I said to some people, all right, black people are 3.5 times more likely to be sectioned. All right. Black children are 10 times more likely to be referred to social care. Black women, and they're looking into the NHS now, are 2 to 3 times more likely to die during and after childbirth. Black babies are twice as likely to be stillborn. Black babies are 45% more likely to experience neonatal death. Black people are 7 times more likely to die in police custody. Depending on the area you're in, black people are 6 to 27% more likely to get stopped by the police. The UK population is made up of 13% black, but in the prisons they're populated by 27%. Black children are 3 times more likely to be permanently excluded. They're twice more likely to receive a suspension. Look, I could go on with figures across the board. So what are you talking about? We've had slavery and we've still got trauma. And all right, there's black people out there that do well, and don't talk about these issues and whatever. And that's down to them. You don't have to be involved in anything in regards to trying to move people's minds forward into sort of creating a space in their head where they can feel like they can demonstrate some humility. So And then people say, yeah, but some black people are all right. But it's not about that. It's about everyone, as much people as possible, getting on a level where they actually think about what's right for humans and human rights, and a level where we all exist and support each other. You know, it's always this thing that when you're talking about black history, it's anti-whiteness. It's never that, you know, not in any way, shape or form. People will talk about black power. People would say black power because that's what was needed to rise up out of the ashes. Resilience and power to overcome. And then, you know, people want to misinterpret it as something anti-white again.
I guess it's because it for those in the corners of their minds, it's scary.
It is.
Because they're thinking, remember, everything comes from a person's mind, innit? So they're assuming that, you know, once black people try to uprise and you know, civilize themselves and act accordingly, it means the depletion of the opposite side, if you want to call it that.
I think what people have got to do is look at the history of black people. Yeah. How many places on this planet have black people colonized and invaded? Check out that statistic, people. How many places have black people gone and done that? How many black countries have got mad arms and weapons? Are they in the Caribbean? Is there mad arms like America and Russia in Africa? To that extent, they may have some arms in China. The nature of black people is giving, is nice. We've been corrupted through certain systems and certain practices to sort of fall in line with the behaviours of the people that have set a standard. They've set a standard and we've adhered to it, but we've adhered to it not only in society as we stand in regards to how we operate in workplaces and how we dress and how we're dictated by time, but also emotionally in the way we behave in violence as well.
You know what, yeah? I want to quickly just go through some of these and move on. But I've noticed this guy, what's his name? Kipilis Bomet Tiondo says, can Africans identify black history even though they haven't gone through slavery? I think a lot of what we just said there kind of answered that.
Africans haven't gone through slavery?
No. He says maybe some Africans like now haven't gone through slavery or whatever.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, like, you know, just how we just said we said not all history is dealing with just Africans being slaves. There's so many things that you could be going into. You've got like, you know, because through the migrations, you got black people everywhere. And there's in pockets of history we've done so much, so we don't just have to look at slavery to get our history. He says, I'm in Africa, but Black History Month is not celebrated in Africa. It started in America. See, this is the thing, and I was talking to someone about this the other day when he was talking to me about Black history. The word history is his story. We need to stop worrying about his story and worrying about our story. We shouldn't be worrying about, even though this is based for Black History Month, because a lot of people haven't got the palate for it every day. So we're doing it like this, so, you know, it goes out and does what it does. But in actuality, we should be studying these things ourselves. Just how we're talking now, and it's a nice interaction between myself and Kevin, and we're trying to offer you a space to throw some stuff to us and we can throw it back to you. That's what it should be. We shouldn't be waiting for anybody else to come and say, here you go. We're supposed to be doing that ourselves. So hopefully it's something where you know, all of us can just make that change and make it something that we do daily, a daily discussion. But we don't put it in Black history, we just call it history.
And that's why a lot of the young people nowadays are lost. You know, they haven't got understanding that for them to exist, it's like when I go to a school and do work. And I'm of that nature. I love all the kids, man. Like, I'm not that guy. Whether you're Bulgarian, whether you're Turkish, whatever you are. But when you go to these schools, the children in the schools need something to identify with in regards to themselves. Because they don't have an understanding as well historically about what their parents, what their grandparents, what their great-grandparents, what their what they went through for them to exist in a room or an assembly hall with other children of different demographics, or not going in through the back door, or being able to get on a bus, or being able to get a job, being able to touch clothes in the front of a shop and handle food, like in regards to the Oxford Street campaign that Jocelyn Barrow sort of forefronted, because at one point in time in the 1960s they didn't want black people working in Oxford Street because they didn't want them touching the clothes or the food.
Yeah, that's
now
mad.
If you understand the history, if you understand what Paul Stevenson and the 1963 bus boycott, because they didn't want black people in Bristol, and that's why Edward Colston, bam, you know, Bristol's got a history with black history, that's why his statue went in the river, but things were going on in Bristol.
Okay, didn't know that.
You know what I mean? So if you don't understand the history, if you don't understand about the Mangrove 9, if you don't understand about the development of the carnival and why and the 1919 riots among the ports because they didn't want black people having jobs, like how contradictory is it that you have 15,000 Caribbeans fighting the First World War. You have 600,000 fighting the Second World War. 1.3 million Africans fighting the Second World War. And then in the 1919s there was riots because they didn't want them to have jobs when they were just fighting the Germans. Are you taking the mickey? And then after that, racial tension was still going on, the 1958 riots. Yeah, and then you had the killing of Kelso Cochrane, the Antiguan carpenter. You know, you had the was it 1981, the New Cross fire when 13 black young people died. There's things that have been going on that you need to know about, especially in regards to if you're black British, let alone your history from back in the day. Whether it was Olado Equiano, Ignatius Sancho, these abolitionists that were black that were at the forefront of pushing or just eradicating slavery. You've got to know your great ancestry and understand that you're great and that you've got resilience, because a lot of the young people now are showing weakness emotionally because they have to group together and do things together when they can't be individuals anymore. Striving forward is quite weird. They're all sort of crabs in one barrel, quite a lot of them.
He's thrown another question here. What's he goes? My question is that. So this is Kipilis Omet Tiondo, the same guy who threw the question before. He's saying my question is that can Africans celebrate black history even though we don't use the term black?
That's African history.
Well, do you know what it is? I like these questions because that makes you have to now look at who gave us the terms black and white. Because in actuality, there is no white person, because we're talking like white, like the colour of this paper. Yeah, there's no one that colour, and we're talking about black like your top. Like these are connotations that was given to us, and it's brackets. You know, even the term black history is a bracket when it should just be history. So those are the things I say, when you start to understand those things, you'll just understand all of that don't matter, but then you start to understand the agendas of what these things are. And it's good to just learn about your history.
I've never lived in Africa. I would assume that history in Africa is African history. So, and it's just history lessons. I'm hoping it's like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if when you go into school in Tanzania or wherever, they teach about, or Sudan or Egypt, they just talk about ancient history of that place over time. It'd be interesting if someone could tell me or tell us, you know what I mean? He's saying that we colonized each other, though, if you know about African history. They did, I mean, and that's what comes up when people are on, when they're experiencing dissonance. Of course, there was, classical slavery. The Romans used to enslave. The Greeks used to enslave. People colonized. They done stuff to each other all the time. The slavery isn't the main part of it. It's the type of slavery and what happened afterwards, the continuum of mistreatment and inequality afterwards. Because slavery isn't, you know, people that read the Bible, slavery's in the Bible.
Hold on. Anna said, I would love to know more about black migration prior to Atlantic slave trade. And Hippolytus has replied, Anna, follow genetics. There was earlier migration, but mainly it was Nilo-Saharan groups and Malta. I think that's what he's trying to say. What do you think of that?
Say that again, sorry. I mean, there's a lot of genetic, like the depth of genetics and migration is deep. I was watching something the other day, and sometimes when you get deep into a realm that you don't understand, it's hard to understand it. So I won't comment on anything genetic, because the genetic, thinking about genetics and migration outwards and inwards, you need some deep understanding of
deep data.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So let's move on to the evolution of mankind. Many scientists believe that humanity began in Africa. What does that say about Africans placed in world history and human identity?
Can you read that again, please?
Many scientists believe humanity began in Africa.
Yeah.
So what does that say about Africans' place in world history and human identity?
What it says is that Africa is the forefront. And really, in regards to African identity, if you have an understanding of that, the chaos and craziness, you know, we've all been indoctrinated to think of Africa in a particular way over time.
Yeah.
So it's put Africa on the lower rung of that sort of ladder of greatness. But if you have an understanding of African history, and start thinking about your own identity in regards to, because there's a lot of lack in people as a consequence of history. You know, I'm not good enough, I can't ascend, the standard is this, and I have to behave in a certain way and adhere to that standard to become great. All right, to a certain extent, to survive in society you do, but how do you be the authentic you? You know what I mean? There's a lot of that lack of identity in regards to black people as a consequence of not knowing enough about the origins of us and our real history. I mean, I could probably at one point in time, and that's where my identity was not so solid, spew off about the Tudors, the Edwardians, the Victorians, the Bouncing Bomb and Barnes Wallis, the World War II, you know, William the Conqueror. Like, you could spew out a lot of British history, and I don't not want to know it. It's quite weird when you're in a place and you understand history, but you come back off a plane and you feel like you've come home because you've been here so long. So I'm by no means anti-Britain, yeah, and I'm not by no means anti-white, but I do know what's come along a timeline of my people's existence and the atrocities they had faced and the hardships they had faced, and how we still operate, like I just said, just quoted those statistics, that we're still experiencing. So when it gets to, and I said to the kids when I went to the school the other day, I said, look, you are the generation that can create change. Whether you become the politicians, the doctors in the National Health Service, the commissioners in the police force, influencing the criminal justice system, and the high-level leaders in education. The level of diversity now and understanding amongst young people is different compared to our day. We were critically divided, black and white or whatever, and you had racism spewing out all over the place, where now there's an understanding by different people, different ethnicities that are mixed, that we all one people and they like each other in a different way. But I said to the kids, it's down to you to change the world. Old hierarchical intellectual minds that have still got racist ideologies pervading them continue the inequalities that are now. The new young generation that experience existence in a more loving and kind, caring fashion, where they're able to extend their hand out to someone from a different demographic, nationality or culture, be friends with them, and just show no signs of racism or discrimination. Those are the young people we need to change everything around. So there might be a point in time when talking like this, it would be a beautiful thing, talking about these subjects. Will be in the back burner. We won't need to talk about black inequality or any inequality, because even when you talk about black inequality, you don't dismiss that whether it's Roma, Turkish, people from all ethnicities are facing inequality in their own way. You don't think, I don't remember Native American Indians being portrayed on American TV and films by a certain way by white people, or Chinese on the whatever, having heroin in certain dens and that with white actors taking the mickey, doing Chinese eyes. I remember all that. I remember Mind Your Language I used to watch here when I was younger, where they had a classroom full of people from Sweden, Asian student, blah blah blah, doing this, going to school learning English, but it was they were taking a mickey out of a whole heap of different nations at once. Like, I don't dismiss that there are other nations and cultures that are getting it hard as well. But that's the beauty of reading black history, because you recognise that. You don't only look at yourself. You can see the wider world and wider and different societies, in different parts of the world, suffering as well at the hand of a standard that's been implemented and enforced and created a system of control, that even in that system of control there's still bias and discrimination and racism involved that you still got to deal with. It's like Arlene Geronimus and her weathering theory, when they talked about COVID and it affecting people. If you read up Arlene Geronimus and talk about weathering theory, black people were more affected by COVID in certain countries like America and England. Why? Why wasn't it happening so much in Africa and the Caribbean? Why weren't a lot of black people going down like that? Because of the societal pressures, the discrimination, the identification, the fetishization, the microaggressions, the unconscious bias. We have to deal with that every day. It's wearing. That's why we're 2 times more likely to have diabetes, and women also are 1.5 times more likely to have preeclampsia, and 6 times more to have that and hypertension. We're struggling in society in regards to our physiology, and it's wearing us down, and we're getting sick, and we're having conditions. You know, we have to think about our lives and black history holistically to understand also how to look after ourselves. Because if you haven't got the knowledge, things are happening to you, and then you don't know why they're happening, and the next minute you're ill and you think it's just a stressful job. It's not always that, because when I say to my boy, if I say to my boy when he grows up, because I don't talk like that now, watch out when you get out on the street because of the police. If I start talking like that, there's a level of anxiety. If I talk to him, watch out in school because his teachers are going to treat you differently, he's going to have a level of anxiety. There's all kinds of things that are said by parents as well that contribute to the stresses that young people suffer from. And now they've got to deal with news of young people on TV, be it black boys being demonized all the time, and then hear stories about people getting stabbed, and not be people that are first hand to the event, but some young people are. They know people that have been killed. So when I talk about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, there's a lot of young black people that are suffering from that, but you can get a support system in the way of understanding your history and what comes with it.
I wanted to ask you, how do ancient fossils like Lucy and discoveries of Olduvai Gorge, if I've got that, said that correctly, reshape our understanding of evolution?
Well, you know, Lucy is funny because Dr. Lewis Leakey and his wife Mary, they were bringing out some bones, man. Like they were bringing out some bones, and people weren't listening to that. When they found a Cheddar Man in Cheddar Gorge in 1903 and dated that back to dated those bones 10,000 years. It was quite funny because that created quite a lot of dissonance in the mind of some people in Britain. How can they find these bones and then reconstructed it as a black guy with blue eyes, you know? And whether it's the Grimaldis or whether it's the Siluris or whatever ancient black tribal people, you know, science has shown that is those are the oldest bones found in England. Sorry, what was the question again?
How do Asian fossils like Lucy and discoveries in old Divide Gorge shape our understanding of evolution?
Yeah, I mean, it presents a starting point that was unthinkable in the minds of some. Yeah, how can black people be the first? You know, so, and I think then it gives, against a continual backdrop of you were slaves or you came from us, blah blah blah. That's the feeling. Feeling like you're the first gives you some self-esteem. Like, well, all this talk we've been hearing, that's what black children need. You know, and I think some people are scared of black children having this confidence in themselves. I mean, black children can be bossy.
Well, definitely,
more bossy than most children, you know what I mean? And they will speak out, but for them to speak out and feel confident and feel happy, and be able to navigate the social space in a most positive way, wouldn't you want that by decolonising the curriculum?
That's right.
And providing black children with what they need. What you've got to understand is this. It's like silence in the therapy room. Silence says a lot in the therapy room, you know, even in conversations with friends. Nev, can you help me out? And then you're silent for about 1 minute. I'm like, right, you don't want to help me out. So it's saying that there's a lot communicated.
Yeah.
So in not even talking any longer about decolonising the curriculum, says a lot about what those people at higher levels, what they can do and what they're not doing, and what are the reasons underpinning that. If you knew, if I said to you, if I threw out a statistic tomorrow, because I'd done some mad research, some meta-analysis, and then I'd said, oh yeah, you know, if you implement black history into the curriculum, it will cut gang crime down by half, or 75%. They're always talking about stopping knife crime, gang crime. Would they do it? I'd hope so, but if they didn't, that would also tell you something. But what I'm saying now, it would be a contributing factor to changing the younger generations coming up. You might have, 9, 10s, 11s or whatever. Imagine in primary, you've got a rich curriculum that's got history holistically distributed to kids, where young kids can say, I know Mansa Musa, I know about Queen Hatshepsut, I know about Shabaka, I know about Sandita Keita from Mali. Like, imagine that. Like, and they going home and telling stories. There's other kids, different demographics, white and black, talking about these stories. I didn't know about that, having a great time. Come on now. You don't want that.
Of course they don't.
Mate, it's unreal.
And you know, you've really answered. I was going to say to you, like, two things I'm going to say, I think all of these have been answered. I was going to say, do you think the story of human evolution is told differently depending on who's controlling the narrative? And I was going to say, how important is it for black people to understand that the first people were African?
It is, I mean, but we've been so divided that then you've got people saying they're not African. They got young people calling, you know, colorism's a deep thing. You know, whether it started on the plantation.
Yeah.
The beauty myth is a deep thing. So it's mad out there how black people even see themselves as a consequence of the deep psychological indoctrination and manipulation that's gone down. You know, so I don't know what to say at the moment. I'm getting emotional. No, really.
All right. And last question, because I believe we've gone over. Yeah, so we've gone over. So I'll wrap it up like this. Can connecting back to our evolutionary roots help restore pride and cultural identity among people of African descent?
It can, but I think, like I was saying, this is what I'm saying, sorry, I'm quite tired today, that lack of understanding that we all come from Africa, the division between Caribbeans and Africans is really upsetting. You know, one of my, shout out to Ukes, my good Nigerian brethren, like, I got friends, I got African friends, that we wouldn't even dare think of talking in those terms, like we're different. You know what I mean? I think we've been so divided that this African Caribbean is seemingly looking down on Caribbeans from the Africans, and Caribbeans looking down on Africans in a certain way. There has to be a level of understanding through Black history that sort of unifies us in a different way in modern day.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just going to be on this. We're on this sort of these puppet strings, still being puppeteered to be thinking a certain way about each other.
Okay, so let me just wrap it up, people. Hold on. I see a lot of people are coming through and someone said, smile, no, we mixed, I'm no pedigree. Big love, yeah, salute. What's that? Saskia Mendes, yeah, much love. Alright, so we're going to wrap it up because we've gone over time, which is fine with me. I don't mind going over time, but I'm just mindful that
It's sort of spiraled off.
yeah, but that you know, that's how conversations run, innit? So I just wanted to give a closing statement. You know, as we wrap up today's discussion, let's remember, knowing where we come from isn't just about pride; it's about purpose. When we reconnect with our true origins, we realize that we are descendants of brilliance, resilience, and divine innovation. The same DNA that built pyramids, charted the stars, and created language that still flows through us today. So let's keep learning, questioning, and reclaiming the chapters of history that were taken from us, because the evolution of humankind began in Africa, and the story of civilization will never be complete without acknowledging its true source. This has been Real Talk with Kevin, where truth meets awareness. So until next time, stay conscious and connected, and stay curious. Peace. Love.
Nice, damn.
Respect.
Ayo, what's outside is within. The mind regulates the hand that masters the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is mightier still. The stargate to the mind's revealed. The vortex.